Welcome to the Wednesday edition of the Roundtable. My name is Raymond, and joining me this morning, haven't seen her for a long time, my co-host Gianna.
Hi.
And our really, truly very special guest today is architect and historic urban landscape specialist, Dr. E. Patricia Green. Good morning, Dr. Green.
Good morning, Gianna.
Good morning.
Thank you for having me.
Yes, it's a pleasure to be here with you. And well, before we get into our usual, check in with you. How has the week been so far?
Oh, it's been great. I'm so happy for the rain yesterday. Gosh, yes. Last night was so cool.
Yes, it's like an AC went off in the sky and the place got cool. And still this morning, how about you, G?
But the windstorm was pretty scary.
Yeah.
It was so much wind. This morning coming down, there were so many down branches.
Right.
Yeah, so for me, I was just like, it's not even hurricane season yet. What's going to happen?
No,
it's mango season, so you can go and pick them up.
That's a good one. All right, now it's time for us to see what's buzzing on our social buzz.
In Jamaica, where are you? United States? UK? Which part you say you're there? Canada? Where are you for lunch? McDonald's? Chick-fil-A?
Eating mango for lunch.
All right, well, Gianna,
Yes.
take us through your social buzz.
So I actually saw it. I didn't see this one. I saw it remixed on a friend's page.
Yes.
But her account is private, and she actually cut that image, that video in
Yes.
with her eating Chick-fil-A because she's in the States, and she was looking very upset that she's eating the Chick-fil-A. And then it just so happens that that very day that I saw it, I walked into my office and I did have a mango someone had gifted me the morning on my desk, but my son got into my office before I did, and he just started eating it. No questions asked, nothing. So there you have it. And it's mango season, right? Yeah. So now everyone is fair game. Every mango that you see is fair game. And then we get to show off on the people overseas that we have mango.
What are you having for lunch? Chick-fil-A.
Yes.
All right, so from social buzz, we're going to jump into our bag of things. All right, so this bag of things is the result of the peer pressure, positive peer pressure from Jane and TK and Renee and the team here at CVM. So in the mornings when they're putting on the makeup, they complain about how dry my skin is, how dehydrated I appear, I need to lock in the moisture, and then, so there's that part of it. And the other part of it is that, fun fact, I used to have a whole heap of hair on my head one time, and every morning for a while, it's just less and less and less of it.
You did!
So I'm getting into all of these natural remedies. That includes apparently anything with rosemary oil in there is good to stimulate hair growth. And the funny thing is, I think it's working.
Rosemary.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think it's working.
Yeah, people cook with it as well, eh?
Yes, and that's another thing. Anything that you cook with, you should be able to put on your skin.
Right.
And anything you put on your skin, you should be able to cook with.
Right.
Or eat.
Right.
I'm not suggesting that you go and drink the shampoo or the conditioner. But yeah, so the thing though is to keep up with it, because I'm used to just leave in, but now I have this entire system of products to use.
But
so.
I'm more interested in that kid and play hairstyle that you just had on the screen there.
Oh, yeah, and that wasn't even when I had a whole heap of hair, but I see something hot coming over here, so let's get into it. Thank you, T. No food today. Oh. No food today. All right, so it's about the line communities, the future of urban living. So we're going to go right over to our subject matter expert, talk to our viewers about this thing that is evolving across the world called line communities.
Oh my goodness. Well, we have to thank Saudi Arabia for this. And line community, it's spelled L-I-N-E, because what is happening in Saudi Arabia is that they're building a city as one straight line. And this city is supposed to be housing at least 9.5 million persons.
Yeah.
And the extent of this is that its highest point is higher than the Empire State Building. And it's designed in such a way that the exterior of this line is actually reflecting the environment. So if you're walking, and Saudi Arabia is hot, arid desert. So if you're walking through the desert, then you wouldn't see that there is a city,
right,
or you're driving or you're flying over, because the entire outer surface of this is reflecting the environment around. So it is considered to be sustainable, smart. You know these words, they're huge buzzwords. So over the course, I don't know if it's necessary for us to explain what is sustainable, explain what is smart, because the persons who live in there would be able to walk very short distances. In other words, you don't really need a car,
right,
so you have public transport. If you need to get to services and activities, it's within walking distance. So emissions, you know, such as all the carbon emissions, etc., that people are talking about, that's going to be impacting the climate, will be totally reduced, etc., etc. So it sounds like the kind of thing, you know, as a former head of the Caribbean School of Architecture, it's the kind of thing that when you see your students did a few years ago, you say, what is that? You know, what are you thinking?
Yes.
Why have you done that? And they will say, Miss, and you say, no, go and do a real building,
right,
go and do a real city. So what we now have is the impossible, the ideas of the impossible becoming possible.
right.
And I think it's fantastic. I think it's wonderful. And it is the future. In fact, driving here this morning, I was saying to myself, I could have been driving on a handcart or a buggy, but we moved forward. We now have motor vehicles, and we now have electric vehicles.
Right.
And so why should we stop progress? And why, and how, what's the future?
Yeah.
And the line is the future.
But so, Gianna, when you first heard about it and then did the research on it, what came to your mind?
That is scary.
Yeah.
And I am totally not interested in it. As much as I understand all the benefits as you've described them, because you were very accurate. It matches all of my research. For me, it's kind of, well, you know, because it's confined, there's increased surveillance that can be not only done by the government. I think anybody who can get into that sort of a system can do that. I also, you know, it's very communal because of the close proximity in which everything actually finds itself, is designed to be. The oxygen, like I know that they have these plants that they're putting at the top to make sure that the oxygen flows and all that. But what happens when something breaks? Like, okay, so if I live in an apartment building, like I don't anymore. I used to love it, right? I love that compact sort of thing. But then the thing is that the person upstairs could light their apartment on fire and it affects me. Right. You understand? So all of those things in this 9 million people who are
in a line.
Yeah, in a line, relying on the same public transportation, the same, and everything in walking distance. The conveniences are undeniably amazing. Like you can say, wow, this would be absolutely wonderful. But at the same time, I really like individualism. I really like space now. I really like the idea that, you know, government's not watching me.
Well, they do. Governments watch. That's no part of the ordinary way of things. But when I saw this, I thought that this was another artificial intelligence generated feature. And then I saw reporting of it on the BBC, that is actually having some negative effects in Saudi Arabia because the government is purchasing, and the viewers are seeing it now on the screen, but the government is purchasing the land of communities that have existed for literally centuries.
Yes.
And some people are resisting. They don't want to sell their land. They don't want to support this concept that we're seeing here. And it's caused a lot of social disarray and discord when the very purpose, or one of the purposes of it, is social cohesion and a sense of community, which you've just touched on. But the other thing that shocked me is that a couple of years ago, one of my favorite movies was released, a movie called Elysium, where the society had so degraded, the environment had so degraded, that there was need to put a strip of a community, a line, but in the shape of an Elysium, which orbited the Earth.
Right.
So when I saw this first, I was like, oh, good, great. This will never happen. But it's actually happening. And you were saying earlier, it will continue to be the mode of development for countries that can afford it.
And even those countries who cannot afford it.
Wow.
The question is, will a city like that, or can a city like that be built in Jamaica? And the answer is yes. And I know your eyes just
in
opened.
Jamaica, as in here, the same Jamaica that includes Kingston and Ocho Rios and Craighead.
Right there, right in our country. It is possible. And watch the trend. You hear the talk about smart cities. You hear about New Kingston becoming a smart city. I just want to touch on something. In 2019, I traveled to Australia. And when I arrived in Brisbane, and I went through, I said, wait, nobody checking me? And I asked the person, my host, who picked me up, and she said, oh, everything is face recognition now.
Yeah.
And I went, oh my God. I got my visa. I got a 6-month visa online. All I did was to copy pages of my passport. It was all done online, everything. And it happened in, it took me less than 30 minutes to complete this. And within 2 hours, I got a 6-month visa. I arrived and nobody stamped my passport. It was just...
We have to touch on that when we come back from the break, because all of this smart can also be a little bit off-putting and imposing.
Yes.
So more online communities, sustainable development, and smart cities when we come back. Welcome back to the Roundtable this morning. The topic is line communities, the future of urban living, and all that comes with that. So literally, my favorite genre of movies haunt me now, because in addition to Elysium, you had Fifth Element, and there's also Person of Interest to speak about the instant face recognition, which is actually, for person of interest, is an exaggerated truth, because the technology wasn't as ubiquitous then as it is now. But like landing in South Africa, you have that same experience, because first you might hear wind chimes, or what you think are wind chimes. So you look up, which is natural, and then that's when they start scanning your face. So as you're walking down the corridor to get to passport control, they've already seen everything. They already know. They literally say, welcome to Johannesburg, Mr. Raymond Price.
Yes.
And soon those people greeting you will be replaced by kiosks.
Right.
Yeah.
And I don't like it.
I don't either, but what can we do?
Like even on my phone right now, now it's like Meta, ask Meta something in the WhatsApp.
Don't say
and
that,
I'm like,
no,
why are you doing that?
If you say it will wake up in the
Yes, I
phone
know.
and
I'm
do
like,
stuff.
why are you doing that? Like if you mispress, if you try to search and you mispress, all of a sudden they have a full thing of everything that you could possibly be wondering. And I'm just like, no, you're invading my space now. It's invasive. So for me, I don't know, especially in this line community, if we go back to just that, like I feel like coming off of the whole world, coming off of a pandemic that we just had, like how do you justify having everybody in these close quarters?
I'll tell you how, because there will be a computer program, the software will recognize that higher levels of the wrong kinds of things are there, and they will put out little alley cuts of the cure.
And the wrong kind of people. I want to take us back. Very, very important.
My heart skipped a beat.
We need to understand the history and development of cities.
Yes.
Now, we're going back about 90 BC, before Christ. And there was the architect Vitruvius who had designed, and his treatise on architecture and cities, the ideal city. Now, when you actually study the nuances of the ideal city, and this has been replicated over the years by various architects who wrote the 10 books of architecture, the 5 books of architecture, including into the 18th century, and today, this is the postmodern era. So there were certain basic principles that were laid out. And one of them is that the city is supposed to be for the merchants, which means that a city is a very exclusive space. And you have a central plaza or square, and around it you had certain activities of government. So in the center of everything is government. So you have the palace of the king, or the governor who represents the king, and then you have the cathedral, so you have church and the head of state. Now, look at who is building the city. Think about it in Saudi Arabia. So it is following the principles of urban design. And of course, we're looking at the Greco-Romana principle, but the same operated in the other cultures as well, such as Persia and China and various things like that. And the city had the merchants living, so the buildings were very elite, and you only had certain types of people living in the city. And on the periphery, which you call the campus or the campo, you have the peasants or the workers.
Peasant over here.
Or the workers.
I like the idea of that then, yeah.
And they come into the city, and they had to leave at certain times because the city belonged to the elite. Now, when you think about the development of cities, and we see certain things happening in our own environment, you begin to, I mean, as an architectural historian, I go back and I say, example, my colleague in Trinidad was doing the restoration of the, and I'll call her name, she's architect Rudlin Defoe Roberts. And she was doing a restoration of the Red House, which is the old Parliament building.
Yes.
And she went on site, and she suddenly saw the foundations being excavated, and she looked down and said, those are bones. And she went, and the end result is the archaeologists found that that was a major indigenous burial site. The question that everybody in Trinidad is saying, why would the British government put their parliament building on top of a major indigenous burial site?
Yeah.
So this is a transposition of one culture and one type of living in the city on top of another culture.
Colonization.
And so this is historically how it has been. And when you read Vitruvius and the development of the city, you see where they actually take the city. So you see layers. You go to Mexico City, you see that the Spanish built their capital on top of the capital of the Aztecs.
Yeah, it's
and
part
so
of the psychology of conquest.
So wipe them out, basically.
well,
But then
it's development.
But
that's what we call
can
it.
we blame the British? Because London is actually layered on centuries of cemeteries.
And it's just traditionally how so when you speak about the line and that they're displacing communities and various things like that, it is the system and it is the way, and it's historically that's how it has been.
But, you know, we're coming up on the break, and then after that, final thoughts. But I have to get your views on this. When you think of the Jamaica you grew up in, which is different from the Jamaica, well, the Jamaica I grew up in is different from the Jamaica Gianna grew up in, because Gianna is still growing up. She's much younger than I am.
Oh.
But don't we lose that sense of space, of greenness, of openness, and of distance and natural history and the natural environment to just be confined in line communities?
My answer is yes. And it's a choice that we have to make. And I think that every nation has to make a choice, and I would encourage everybody to insist that, you know, we choose this. Jamaica is a small island developing state. It's fabulous. I am tired of people telling me, oh, I just love your country. Where were they? On the beach, they were on a mango tree eating a mango. It's just one of the experiences of the coolness of the breeze.
Yes.
The most expensive, exclusive hotels, they have open showers, you know, and they have zinc roof because the people come here to hear the sound of the rain on a zinc roof. And so these are some things that make us different, unique, and therefore we need to begin to speak about these things and to promote the character of our environment.
And preserve.
And preserve.
Yes.
Preserve not only the natural, but also the built environment.
So we're going to take a quick break. When we come back, it's time for final thoughts. But you know what you could do is go on our social media and say whether you would opt in to line living or you'll keep things the way we like them here. More after the break. Thanks for staying with us. You know, it's no time for final thoughts. So we're going to throw to Dr. Green and then Gianna, and then we'll wrap the show. Go ahead, Dr. Green, your final thoughts.
Oh, my goodness. I think CVM listeners know that I'm a believer, a woman of faith. And some of the sites that I check, when they see the line, they start to say Babel. There's a whole link between this kind of rebuilding of a city and a tower, and it's been equated to the Tower of Babel, when God looked down and he saw them building a tower and a city. And then he confused it. There's a lot of, in architectural history, it's a major discussion, and I have read much on it. And I know a little bit about the whole philosophy and architecture behind the Tower of Babel, because people have postulated on how it may have been. And so that's the likeness that people are saying about the line. And I had to say, God, tell me, what is this one language? Because God looked down and he confused the language. And so we have different languages, because he said, man can do anything because they're speaking one language. And you know what the Lord shared to me in my heart, and I'm happy to share this with the audience. He said, the language is the algorithm. All of that computer technology and everything, face recognition, it's the one language. So somebody in Australia can begin to predict when you flush your bathroom in Saudi Arabia because of this whole connectivity. Isn't that amazing? Forgive me, listeners, and Raymond and Gianna, for going so personal as the bathroom. But I mean,
it's fine. But Gianna, over to you, because the whole reference to the one language and the algorithm and the control we live in is too much for me. Yeah.
That I still don't like. Yeah. Okay, so my final thought is, please don't let the lion communities come here to Jamaica, because if so, what would people come here for anymore? Yeah. They come here for our natural beauty and all the infrastructure that we do have that is so unique to us. Why would they come? Why would the diaspora people come back home? What would you be looking for if you can get it anywhere else? We are unique, and we must maintain our identity. In architecture and fashion and arts and everything. Thank you.
For me, I'll be that one person left in Craighead, still planting yams, still not living in the line, and I am happy for those who can do it, but not for me. No. That's a wrap for the Roundtable today. Thank you to our amazing guest, Dr. Patricia Green, architect and historic urban landscape specialist. Remember, guys, be good, be on purpose, and avoid the lines.